Tonight, more questions emerge on raging Sputnik V vaccine purchase controversy as Joy News secures copy of agreement with middlemen accused of inflating the price of the vaccines. But has Ghana lost any monies in this botched deal?
We haven't paid any money directly to the suppliers. In the agreement, we only established letters of credit.
We bring you details of the payment terms.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Gasem Cement, the nation builder. Is also brought to you by Vodafone. There are more questions tonight about the unfolding Sputnik V vaccine purchase controversy in the wake of the Health Ministry statement justifying government's agreement to purchase a vaccine from middlemen at $19 a dose. Now, Joy News has found discrepancies in the price build-up that government says justifies the $19 dose price instead of the Russia-approved price of $10. Now, Joy News has secured a copy of the agreement government signed with the middlemen, which offers clarity on the payment terms. We'll also tonight hear from the Chief Director at the Health Ministry, who signed the following statement, excerpts of which we have voiced for you.
The MOH has since early this year made several efforts to procure the Sputnik V vaccine directly by engaging the Russian authorities, such as the Russian Prime Minister, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, the CEO of Russia Direct Investment Fund, and the CEO of limited liability company Human Vaccine. Meetings were also held with the Deputy Ambassador of Russia in Ghana. The MOH also engaged individual Ghanaians and companies for the supply of various types of COVID-19 vaccines. Unfortunately, none of these efforts have yielded any results till date. Against the backdrop of non-response from direct channels and global shortages of the vaccine, the MOH on 9th March 2021 responded to an offer from the private office of His Highness Sheikh Ahmed Dalmok Al Maktoum of the United Arab Emirates for the supply of a total quantity of 3.4 million doses of Sputnik V vaccines at a unit cost of $19 at a cost of $5.7 million. This is yet to be delivered. This undertaking includes an option to opt out of any obligations if supply conditions are not met. It should be noted that the $10 price per dose, which is being proposed at the correct price, is the ex-factory price, which is only obtained from the government-to-government arrangements. The government of Ghana was unable to obtain direct supplies from the Russian government, as stated earlier, hence the result to the market. The initial price quoted was $25, but this was negotiated downwards to $19. This is the result of the cost build-up to the ex-factory price of $10 per dose, taking into account land transportation, shipment, insurance, handling, and special storage charges as explained by the seller. These are the factors which led us to agree the final price of $19 per dose.
So, what does the agreement itself says? The agreement based on which we arranged to get the 3.4 million doses. We secured a copy of that agreement between the government of Ghana and the private office of His Royal Highness Sheikh Ahmed Dalmut Al Maktoum. My colleague Kweku Asante joins me in the studio. Kweku, so the fundamental issue relates to the cost build-up. We'll tell you shortly what this agreement says about what went into the price that you gave us of $19. But what is the total sum involved here in purchasing all 3.4 million?
Right. So the total cost is $64,600,000.
Okay. So that is how much we had committed to spend to get all 3.4 million doses. Now let's now deal with that controversial subject of how come the vaccine cost us $19 instead of $10. The government statement that was issued said it cost us $19, taking into account the cost build-up, which includes land transportation, shipment, insurance, handling, and special storage charges. These are what the government statement said. But what does the agreement actually say?
Right. So according to the agreement, the total price is inclusive of documentation, shipping, packaging, logistics, and expenses in relation to shipment of the vaccine from the other's place of origin to the Republic of Ghana.
Now, so there are a few things to note, which is that there are the differences in what the build-up is, as the government has said in the statement, and what the contract actually says the build-up involves. So in the government statement, the government says the build-up includes insurance.
Yep.
If you look at the agreement, it doesn't mention
It
insurance,
doesn't mention insurance.
as part of the build-up. Again, if you look at the government statement against the actual agreement, the government statement doesn't mention documentation, but the agreement says documentation is part of the build-up. So you begin to see the differences that needs to be reconciled between what the government statement says account for the $19 a dose and what the agreement says accounts for it.
Yep.
There's also packaging in the agreement, which you don't find in the government statement. The government statement talks about handling and special storage. You could argue that would account for the logistics, which you see in the agreement. So there are a few things that still needs to be reconciled when it comes to the statement, as it relates to what accounted for the $19 a dose that we are getting. So that's one of the key things that we've observed as a discrepancy. Now, the other key question that many have been asking is, have we already committed actual monies to the middlemen or already? Have we lost some money in this? Because they have failed to deliver on the promises they made to us. First was 300,000. They failed that. And we'll go through all the other benchmarks that they failed over the time. So have we paid anything? And what is the payment term exactly from this agreement?
Right. So the payment terms under this agreement says the buyer shall pay in advance through site LC to seller 50% for each batch of supply order as per supply order specifications, excluding duties and taxes, as advance payment immediately upon signing of this agreement. The buyer shall pay the remaining 50% of the supply order, excluding duties and taxes, through a confirmed letter of credit. For the avoidance of doubt, the seller has already delivered the first 15,000 doses to the buyer, for which the buyer undertakes to pay after signing the agreement as part of the supply order.
Okay.
So 15,000 has already been supplied. The question is, have we paid?
Have we paid for the 15,000 doses already? And we did some calculations that will come to $285,000. Now, the good thing about this is you're going to get some clarity on whether or not we've paid anything in actual sums already from Kwabena Boedu Akuafari, who is the Chief Director of the Health Ministry. But it's instructive to note that as far as the payment terms is concerned with the agreement, it relates to advance payment, but this is only through site LC, which is a letter of credit. So you're not giving them actual cash, you're giving them a letter of credit, you deliver, you access the funds. I mean, which is the arrangement that we came into, except to say that they've already made a delivery of 15,000. And the contract term says you pay, you get the money when you actually deliver. So that question needs to be resolved. In fact, we're also learning tonight that they've actually delivered more than 15,000. There was an additional 5,000 that was also delivered after the initial 15,000. And so that question we'll get some clarity to very shortly. So that's a question that is being asked tonight. We also learn a bit more about, in case, remember that yesterday the WHO warned us that when you're dealing with middlemen, WHO says all around the world they're finding countries coming to complain that middlemen have brought in substandard COVID products, just to quote the WHO official, which could also mean fake vaccines. There's a clause in this agreement that says fake vaccines will have devastating health consequences. That talks about what the liability will be in case you use the vaccines they've supplied to you and you have adverse effect. What does that clause say?
Right. So the clause says, for the avoidance of doubt, the parties acknowledge and agree that the seller is a distributor of the vaccine and is not a manufacturer, and none of the seller or any of its connected persons shall be subject to any liability under this agreement or otherwise for any loss suffered by or to the buyer or any person whatsoever, including patients and their relatives, resulting from the use of the vaccine, including liability for any claims that may be made against the seller by any third person. So it continues to define who these connected persons are. But essentially, this statement is saying that the seller will not bear any responsibility whatsoever should any issues come up.
Okay, so that's under clarity there that we got from this document about what happens once they bring the vaccines. And they say, listen, we are just supplying, we don't manufacture. And so we're not bearing the liability if you have adverse effect on any person whatsoever, including patients and their relatives. And so that's a clarity in the statement. Another key thing that we're learning is the various benchmarks and dates that this agreement specified for delivery of various amounts and quantities of vaccines. The first, obviously, was end of March, which is widely reported. This agreement says the middlemen were supposed to provide supply to Ghana 300,000 doses. We know they failed to do that. The second date was April. They were supposed to then provide supply to Ghana 600,000 doses in April. Again, they failed. We come to May. They're again supposed to supply 1 million doses. They failed. The last delivery date is June, according to the document, according to the agreement, and they were supposed to supply 1.4, in fact, let's be specific, 1,485,000 doses end of June. While we are in June, we are waiting what will happen. I'll be speaking shortly with Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who's joining us via Zoom right now. Hello, Dr. Nkrumah. Thank you for your time here on Top Story once again.
Hello, good evening, Evans, and good evening to all your listeners.
So before I even bring you in, there's some further clarity that we are getting from the chief director at the health ministry on some of the outstanding questions that we've raised from reading this agreement. He's been speaking. He spoke a short while ago on Pulse, on Joy News Television, with my colleague Gifto Andro-Apia, who starts by asking him why we chose to use middlemen against the explicit advice of the WHO. This was his answer.
Well, whether the information was there or not, I think whenever you are dealing with middlemen, you have to be very prudent. You have to be very careful who you are dealing with. So it's not a matter of WHO. We ourselves were very prudent in whoever we are dealing with. And it's not only one agent or one middleman that we are dealing with. So we have had so many of them, and we are very careful who we are dealing with.
Have we paid any money regarding this transaction?
We haven't paid any money directly to the suppliers. We in the agreement, we established letters of credit. And if you know how letters of credit work, is the bank that will establish it, and it's only paid, the money is paid on delivery. So the payment is made to the supplier only on confirmation that the commodities have been delivered. So far, 15,000, now 20,000 doses have been delivered. When the agents came to Accra for negotiations, they came with 15,000 doses to prove that they can deliver. And then later on came with another 5,000. You know that Sputnik V comes in two components. So if you get 10,000 doses of one component, you have to get 10,000 doses of the other component to make it complete. So we have 20,000 doses, and it was to prove that they can deliver. So we have that in our custody, but no money has paid. We will only pay them after all the 300,000 doses have been delivered. But yes, we have established letters of credit to that effect, but the money will only go to them when they have delivered fully the 300,000 doses, and we have indicated that the delivery is complete.
Okay, so the people who will ask 20,000 doses, it won't come for nothing. At least we'll have to show some level of commitment. I mean, that's the logical business process. Apart from the letters of credit that you talk about, does it mean that nothing, or not even a cedi, has gone to the people who have provided you 20,000 doses?
Not a peso, not even a peso, a penny has gone into that.
And are we not concerned about expiry dates in this case, since we have you said we have it in our custody, 20,000 doses in our custody? Are expiry dates not a problem?
Well, we have an expiry date for the agreement as well, for the delivery of the 300,000 doses. I think, if my memory serves me right, we have up to the end of July for them to deliver. If they don't deliver by that time, I believe that we have to decide whether we will extend it or we will abrogate the contract.
So that is the Chief Director of the Health Ministry then. That last point is critical because they've missed, as I've indicated, per the contract, all the contractual scheduled date for delivery of the various quantities. And we are in June as the last date now for the last delivery. And you just heard the Chief Director say we'll have to consider whether we extend or we completely abrogate the contract. But there's a fundamental question about our decision to engage Russia and how we ended up with middlemen. That question was posed to him. This was his response.
It's difficult to get the vaccines directly from the manufacturers. You always have to get an agent to be able to do it. The foreign ministry, I know, also spoke to the deputy Russian ambassador here with view to get them to help us to procure directly from the factory in Russia, but all of them did not yield any positive results, and therefore we thought that it was an opportunity for us when we were approached by Al Maktoum from the private office of the Sheikh in Dubai to have the vaccine supplied to the government of Ghana.
The request was made to, and this was supposed to be a government-to-government agreement, because that's what this procurement of vaccines are supposed to be, government-to-government understanding. That did not work. Did you get any response?
Well, our engagement with the Russians indicated that we had to use an agent.
Okay.
Because that is how they deal with the vaccine supply. For all the contacts that we made, we had to get an agent who will deal with the manufacturers directly and not necessarily go through the government directly.
Let me bring in Dr. Kwame Nkrumah now, a fellow with the CDD. Doc, that last point that he made, is that how the global supply of vaccines work? He says the Russians told us you can't deal with us directly, go to an agent.
Thanks. I'm laughing because yesterday you heard the answer given by the WHO. So the simple answer, is that how it works, is no. I would expand it also by saying that Turkey has already obtained Sputnik vaccines, and they did a government to government. Yesterday, the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, accused Russia and Vladimir Putin of doing vaccine politics by brokering government to government deals. One was brokered with Brazil, which eventually got cancelled, and the Russians were up in arms because they claimed that it was politically motivated. That is to tell you that globally, I've given you Europe, I've given you South America, and I'm going to give you Africa. Guinea did a government to government deal with Russia because some clinical trials took place in Guinea, and they got vaccines as well. So it is not entirely accurate that you cannot go direct to the government. The fact of the matter is, we went a bit too late for Sputnik, and we were behind the queue. But then more importantly, one thing we have to realize is that for you to move any medicine, whether it's in an emergency or in normal times, you have to have what we call a market authorization or a license in the country in which you'd use it, which is Ghana with the FDA. I have now found out that those who applied for the emergency use authorization with our FDA had nothing to do with the sheikh bringing the medicines into Ghana, which is a concern for me. It's another red flag, because in that contract you read, they are absolving themselves of any risk should something untoward happen. And if they haven't applied for the license in Ghana, which is the standard process, and they are telling us that if we supply to you and something happens, you can't fall back on us, you should know that there's something that doesn't really add up. And these are the things that Evans, the more I read the contract and the more I dig and I find some of these information, the more I get concerned. Because it seems to me that we're being told what we are expected to hear and not what exactly the situation is. Final red flag. You've missed 3 dates: March, April, May. We're in June. What makes you think June would come? Especially when this same group faltered in Pakistan and faltered in Jordan. What makes anyone think that Ghana is different? These are the questions I'm still asking.
Yeah, the chief director.
I'll leave it for now.
The chief director was one asked a question about, are you still expecting delivery? He says, well, if they don't meet the final June date, then we have to make a decision. You almost suggest that we should forget about them, cut your losses, and move on and pursue other options.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, the contract they had with Iran has been abrogated. The Pakistan contract is currently being investigated by Transparency International. We know of the issues in Jordan. The question I ask myself is, we know of the characters that are with the sheikh. We know one of them is an ex-convict in Norway and a fugitive for justice currently living in London. We know the other one is also a fugitive for justice living in the UAE. What makes us think that these characters, having faltered in other countries, are going to deliver when it comes to Ghana? I still ask that critical question about due diligence, and I'm wondering when that will be answered.
On the due diligence question, that was also put by my colleague Iftan Apia to the chief director. I want to play a clip of what he said to that. Let's see if that addresses your concern.
This is a supplier's market. So if you need the thing and it's not available and you have to sit down and negotiate, I don't think that the person forces you to buy it. You either buy it or you leave it. And if you need the thing urgently and you weigh the pros and the cons and you think that you want to buy it, you go in and buy it. But to say that the person is the same person who has a tag on him or her, I don't know about that. We have a proverb that says that if a river drowns you, does that mean that you don't drink water again? So you need a thing, the person has it, he negotiates with you, and you think that the price is okay given the market conditions. So yes, we did the due diligence. We knew that the person was a business person, a businessman who is selling. As for other things about a person, I cannot tell.
Okay. Dr. Kwame, what's your reaction to that?
It's as though you're telling me that anyone walks to the government because we are in a seller's market. Anyone walks to the government and tells them, I have medicines, I can sell them to you, especially when the person doesn't have the emergency use authorization in the country. And because it is a seller's market, we would negotiate with him anyway. We wouldn't check as to his ability to deliver. Because as he said proverbially, the fact that the guy has caused us to drown once in the Ameri deal doesn't mean that we shouldn't drink water from him. But there is also Abakan saying, which suffices to say, if you have seen fire in the beard of your neighbor, you fetch water and guard your beard. So what happened to that saying as well? So I am hearing a lot of things that are to bat and fob and justify why this has happened. But critically, the issues around emergency use authorization and who has obtained it, and doing the due diligence from that point to realize, does this person have the ability to deliver? Does this person have the character to deliver? Has this person shown a track record in any other countries? Are there any red flags that should concern us? We didn't do it, and we're saying it wasn't important because we are in a seller's market. I don't think that is tenable.
I'm grateful that you join us with your thoughts. That's Dr. Kwame Sapon. He is a CDD fellow, helping us navigate the complex web of this controversy raging over our purchase of Sputnik V vaccines using middlemen. Newsnight starts in 2 minutes.
55, 78, 58, 78. Hey, Charlie, my network is really killing me. I have to pay my uncle's workers via mobile money, but the charges alone